Hi everyone, today I'm going to have a cooking video for you. It's been a while. It's actually a baking video. I'm making a Ocracoke Fig Cake, and I will show you the recipe that I'm using. I don't know if you can read that or not, but I'll put it in the description if it's not legible. But Ocracoke, if you don't know, is a small island off the coast of North Carolina. It makes up part of the Outer Banks, and one of the things that they're known for are figs. They have lots of fig trees on the island. They grow really well there, and they have a fig festival every year. It actually has just happened, but my parents grow figs at their home, and their trees have been doing really well this year, so I have an abundance of figs. I've never tried to make this cake before, but I've heard of it. I've heard really good things about it, so I'm going to give it a try. We're starting with 3 eggs, and you'll notice I don't have a mixer. This is a simple cake, but you don't need a mixer for. You do this all by hand. So I'm starting by whisking my eggs. Alright. Then I'm going to add my sugar. I need 1.5 cups of sugar. You don't have to sift anything. You don't have to worry about that. This is a very, very simple old-fashioned recipe. Oh, and this will be going into a bundt pan. This is a bundt cake. Sugar. Then I need to add, calls for 1 cup of salad oil or vegetable oil. I don't use vegetable oil anymore, so I have avocado oil. This is the one that I'm using. A lot of people had switched to olive oil. I was one of them, until I learned that olive oil can't handle high heat, and it can't handle heat for an extended period of time. So not something you actually want to be baking with. Avocado oil, however, can handle high heat, and it doesn't bother it at all. So get that all whisked up well. You can absolutely pull out your mixer for this if you want to. I don't like cleaning more things, so I will just do it by hand. Alright, so nice and smooth, very much like a condensed milk consistency at this point. Now I'm going to add my flour. I need 2 cups of flour. This is a 1/2 cup measure. My 1 cup measure has flown the coop for the time being, so 1/2 cup will do. Okay, there's my flour. Now I need a teaspoon of salt. You can absolutely mix all your dry ingredients in a separate bowl if you want to. It's usually recommended. I don't like to do that just because I don't like making more dishes. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Half a teaspoon of ground cloves. So very much like we're making a spice cake. Half a teaspoon of nutmeg. Alright, and that's all of our dry ingredients, so I'm just going to give them a little mix together here on top. And see, that works just as well as doing it in a separate bowl. Now, I'm going to give them a mix into our liquids down below. You don't want to over mix your cake at this point, so be gentle with it. Actually, I'm going to switch to a spatula now that I don't need to be whisking anything. Sorry, that's obnoxious, I know. All right. Now, we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda that's been dissolved in 1 tablespoon of warm water. Get that in there, like so. Then I need 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. Make sure you're using good vanilla. You can always tell when you don't. Then, something else, I need 1/2 cup of buttermilk. I don't have any buttermilk, so I'm going to be using heavy whipping cream. And to turn it into buttermilk, I'm going to add a splash of white vinegar. So probably about 1/2 teaspoon's worth. And I'm gonna let that sit for a second while I mix these in. You want to let that vinegar, or you can even use lemon juice, you want to let that sit for a minute or so, so that it can go to work on the fats in that milk. And fun fact about heavy cream, it actually contains way less sugar per ounce than milk. So if you're trying to, I mean, we're making a cake, so it doesn't matter, but if you're trying to cut back on your sugars, try and use heavy whipping cream in your recipes instead of milk, and you will see a difference. So you can see how it's foaming there. The vinegar has gone to work and separated it out. So we're gonna mix that in. Now this recipe also says that you can mix in various chopped nuts if you would like to. The majority of people that I cook for don't care for nuts, so we're gonna leave those out. Get this mixed in. And then, I know you're saying, oh, this is a fig cake, where are the figs? So, I made this earlier today. This is some fig jam. So it is, I used 5 cups of figs, and I cooked them down on the stove until they were really soft, and I pulverized them with my little, what are they called, immersion blender, and then I added 5 cups of sugar and let it all cook down till it was nice and thick, and it has cooled, and now it's ready for my recipe. So the recipe calls for 1 cup of fig jam, but it also says in the fine print that you can add 2. You just cook it a little bit longer. So I have lots of figs, and I also want to make sure I can taste the figs. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 2. And you'll see this is a very reddish fig jam. That's just the variety that my parents have that's ripe at the moment. It makes for a really pretty, almost strawberry color, which is neat. So now we're going to mix this in. It's a very thick batter. So I can see why it's gonna take it a while to cook. Alright, and you can see some of those pieces of fig where I didn't pulverize it all the way down. So the next thing we're gonna do is I have my bundt pan, and this is actually a pretty sunflower shaped one. I'm gonna slide this forward for a second. It says to butter and flour your pan. I just buy this kind. I know it's not good for you. I don't use it often enough for it to be a problem in my opinion. But this already has your fat as well as flour mixed into it, so you don't have to do that step. Alright, now we're going to take our mixture, which is really heavy, and we're going to pour it right into our pan. Make sure you scrape all the sides of the bowl really well. That's a pet peeve of mine. When you watch cooking channels and they leave half of the recipe in the bowl. Like, you could have fed 3 more people with what you didn't scrape out of the bowl. Oops, sorry, my hand is blocking your view, isn't it? I'll show you here in a second. You finish getting it all in here. Alright, so there's that. And now we're just going to make sure it's nice and smooth. It's liquidy enough that it's pretty much self-leveling. That. Alright, so next thing to do is just get this in the oven. So I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees, and this is going to cook, it says to bake it for 45 minutes if you're doing it in a loaf pan at 325 or in a bundt pan at 350 for just a little longer. So we're going to try 50 minutes, but then it also says if you add a second cup of preserves, bake a little longer, approximately 1 hour. So I'm going to set the alarm for 50 minutes and come back and take a look at it then. So here's what she looks like in the pan, fresh out of the oven. It has been about 5 minutes, so it has sunk a little bit. These were up and open, and they have sunk back down. It did take right at 50 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this out onto my plate, and I'll show you what it looks like then. There we go. Ocracoke Fig Cake, and you can actually see a good chunk of fig right there. It smells like Christmas in here, so I put it on a Christmas plate. I will probably add some glaze on top of this once it cools. I'm going to let it sit overnight and just cool and come back and try glaze.